But I wanted to talk, knowing that we would hear a bit about what was happening in La Loche, I wanted to talk about Easter, about the Christian life, about the fact that here we are, people, and what you see and hear and smell and taste and touch seems real. And yet, we all know that there's something more. We know there's something different. And God, in His graciousness, allows us to see at times, to be aware at times of His touch and His direction. And He speaks to each of us in ways that we can hear and that we can understand. And we have a God who knows us personally. Nyla, thank you so much for that word. Right? It's really easy to look at these four and go, oh, well, I'm not like them. And you're not. Hallelujah. Right? You're you. And as they were coming, I was saying, hey, they went to La Loche. Maybe you're supposed to see your neighbor. Maybe you're supposed to be kind to somebody at school. Maybe you're supposed to, you fill in the blank. It's your life. But the outworking of our Christian lives happens in this world that we see. But the motivation for that, the reason that we're different, the reason that we can change is because God is at work in us. And so we're continuing in Colossians. I asked the board, or I wrote a report. We have a board meeting on Tuesday, and in my report I said, we're continuing through Colossians. Do you think anybody's fooled by the fact that we keep doing mini-series within Colossians? 2 weeks, two world reality, we're still in Colossians. Chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. If you want to follow along, that would be a good thing. But let me start by reading this to you from the Message. So, if you are serious about living this new resurrection life with Christ, act like it. Pursue the things over which Christ presides. Don't shuffle along, eyes to the ground, absorbed with the things right in front of you. Look up and be alert to what's going on around Christ. That's where the action is. See things from His perspective. Your old life is dead. Your new life, which is your real life, even though invisible to the spectators, is with Christ in God. He is your life. When Christ, your real life, remember, shows up again on this earth, you'll show up too, the real you, the glorious you. Meanwhile, be content with obscurity like Christ. Something can be absolutely true, but if you don't act on it, it is worthless. A little bit of insider training. I could tell you that, you should buy shares in something tomorrow. And, I know all about that stuff, right, Clayton? Right? But it could be true. But if you don't act on it, you're going to be as poor tomorrow as you are today. But right? I could give you $1 million boost. But if you don't act, it has no impact. The hardest part in any kind of marital or personal counseling isn't finding the right truth to share with people who are seeking help. It's getting the people to act on the implication of the truth that they have found. It's the reason why Alcoholics Anonymous meetings start with the introduction, your first name, and the confession. Hi, I'm Rick. I'm an alcoholic. Finding truth isn't the hard part. It's acting on it. It's the significance of the truth that has been found in application that we find hard. Hi, my name is Rick. I'm a sinner. The essence of the Christian life is to face the truth, both the good truth and the painful truth, in all of its starkness and all of its reality, and to face the implications that flow from that truth. Hi, my name is Rick. I am a Christ follower. The opening of Colossians chapter 3, Paul's telling us a truth, and he's calling on us to act on it. The implications that flow from that truth have to be acted out. One Alberta wife has gotten fed up with men. So she says, she's not going to talk to them anymore. It's a lot like putting a saddle on a cow. It's an awful lot of work, but why would you do it? So she's going to act on that. It's, you work like crazy, but what's the point in trying to talk to a man? So she's not going to do it anymore. Might work for her. But she has a truth. Talking to men is useless. Don't do it. So she's not. All of us have truths that we know, that we never act on. Now, all of that, by way of introduction, I'm going to give you a truth. The question after that isn't whether or not you'll nod your head and agree with it. The question is whether you have heard the truth, you will do something with it. So let's look at that truth, and then next week we'll look at the implications. The truth is simply this. There is a two-world reality. There are two worlds. No one, no man, woman, or child can find their identity in both of those worlds. Two worlds. You can't find your identity in both of them. You can only find it in one or the other. Listen to Colossians 3, verse 1. This time from a translation, not from a paraphrase. New American Standard Bible says, "Therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God." Do you hear the implied if-then construction there? If A is true, then B naturally follows. If you have been raised up with Christ, implied then, keep seeking the things above. You see, Paul is giving you the truth, the new life in Jesus through faith in him. Now come the implications, the actions that are necessary as a consequence of that truth. Seek the things above. Or if you prefer Peterson's take, if you're serious about living this new resurrection life with Jesus, act like it. He says something similar in Colossians 3:3. He says, "For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God." Do you look dead? Well, at the moment, you look tired. But most of you look like most of you came in under your own power. We'll say that. And hopefully all of you will leave under your own power as well. But are you dead? No. But he says you have died. But your life is hidden with Christ in God. There's a two-world reality. Here, what we see, and there, which changes the way we will live. Here's the big truth. It's not just that we have been raised up with Christ and are to seek the things above. The big truth is that these two worlds exist, the one you see and the one you don't. And if this Jesus stuff is real, and it is, then everything and everyone you see here is going to pass away physically. This building will be torn down and destroyed. These bodies will die and decay. All the work that went into this building and cleaning it, all the effort you put into exercise and good diet, despite all that, it'll all pass away. Is that a morbid thought? Well, maybe. But deep down in our hearts, we know that there is something more, that this doesn't last, that deep down we know that there is something beyond here. Years ago, C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Screwtape Letters. It's the tale of how Screwtape, a senior demon, is instructing his young nephew, demon Wormwood, in the art of tempting and destroying humans. In it, Screwtape recalls how he was in charge of an atheist once. And the man was reading a book in the British Museum, and as he read the book, he began to think about God. He began to think about ultimate issues like, I'm going to die, and what happens then? He began to think about his children and about the reality of a world that goes beyond this world. And Screwtape said to his nephew, I almost lost 20 years of work. But let me tell you what I did, nephew. I made him think about lunch. I said, aren't you a little bit hungry? And pretty soon he was out on the street looking for lunch and listening to the paper boy shouting out the headline from the daily paper. It happens to us all. that other world that is our ultimate reality begins to intrude on our day-to-day life, the world that we see and we walk in. And we start to think about ultimate meaning. We start to think about, what is this about? Why do I do what I do? And then we get hungry. Or we have to go to the bathroom. Or 100 other things that happen because we're human and live in this body. We're distracted. The bills that need to be paid. The routines and the things that are necessary to our daily lives push out that ultimate reality. But occasionally, the other world breaks through. Sometimes in the joyous laughter of a child. In an act of random kindness. In a Good Friday or a Resurrection Sunday service. Perhaps when the sunlight breaks through a cloudy sky or while you're reading a book. But often it's when we are quiet, which may tell us something about why our world and our lives are so noisy and busy. But often in the quiet, maybe in those moments just before we fall asleep, in the silence we hear the sound of sandaled feet, and the other world breaks through. So what's the problem? The problem is that because we can taste and touch and hear this world so easily, that we live like this is the only world. And it is not. That's a lie, and it smells of smoke because it comes from the pit of hell. There are two worlds, and that's truth. Never forget the real world and choose to live your life in light of it. Someone tells the tale of two tadpoles in their little puddle at the side of the road. They're having lots of fun doing what tadpoles do. And the one tadpole stuck his nose out of the water, and he turned to the other tadpole and he said, "You're not going to believe what I just saw. There's a whole world out there, and I saw people so big that I couldn't look at them all at the same time. And that world out there controls our little puddle." The other tadpole said, "Can't be, not possible, be realistic, never happened." Two worlds. In one there's death and decay, and in the other there is abundant life and growth. In the one world there are manipulation and force, and in the other there is humility and freedom. In the one world there's self-interest and expiration, in the other there is love and eternity. And the point is this: you can't find your identity in both worlds. That's the truth. If you come back next week, we'll look at some of the implications of that. But before you go, do you remember doubting Thomas? Missed seeing the Lord the first time when he came back? The other disciples are in the upper room, hidden away, hiding, and Jesus appears. They tell Thomas about it, and he says, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand in his side, I'm not going to believe." Which, frankly, is a totally reasonable request in light of the fact that he knows Jesus is dead. But when the risen Lord appears to Thomas and offers him the opportunity to do exactly what he asked, "Put your fingers in my hand, reach into my side," instead, Thomas falls to his knees and he proclaims, "My Lord and my God." Did you hear it? He sees a man that he devotedly followed, a man that he has already called Rabbi, Teacher, and Lord. The physical reality that he knew and that he could see is right there back in front of him. But do you hear it? Thomas is seeing a two-world reality. And he says, "My Lord and my God." This is Jesus, fully man. This is the Lord. This is the guy that that I campfired with, that we went fishing with, that we've slept around in visiting. We've been couch surfing for 3 years, right? This is Jesus. But on his knees, prostrate before him, he also declares, my God. The veil is lifted and the other world is visible. May he grant us eyes to see that ourselves. Our God lives, and he reigns today. And we need to look at his world and his plans and his victory. You think about that. Amen.